All right, today we're going to build a shelf, just a wall shelf with a plate dado in it. So let's get started here. So we're making a shelf. You can go on to describe shelves. There's about a million different types of shelves. There's the type that sits on the floor for your books, and there's, but this one is just going to be a very simple one that you just screw to the wall. Okay, so let's draw a front view and then the side view. So here, it's just like you've got it on the wall. Okay, and then we're going to have, technically these things on the ends are called corbels. Sometimes people call them braces. I don't know, a lot of names for them. There's going to be a board that comes along the bottom side right here, and that will be the one that you screw through. So if your studs are on your inside your wall are 16 inches apart, you'd put a screw through this and then put a plug on it, or if you use a trim head screw, you take a little putty and put it in there. But so we're just building a shelf, nothing, no plugs or nothing at this point. So the side view would look like this. Do that ogee a little bit. I can do better than that. There, that looks much better. And then this brace here will be putting in as a dash line. Okay, like so. All right, I've already laid this all out, so again, from last year, this is going to be like super easy for you guys. So this length here is, let me just double check, would be 39. There's actually going to be quite a bit of information on that on here, because I'm going to show you the part layout as well, how it fits onto our piece of raw wood. We're going to start with a piece of lumber. So it's 39, and then this is 5 1/4. All right. Now you notice there's a little space right here. I'm just going to bring this up here. So that's a location dimension, and that will be 3/4 of an inch. This will be on each end 1 inch. So it's like, and sometimes I'll try to keep those numbers the same, but it just worked out really well to do it this way this time. So, all right, so if that distance is 39, the distance from the outside to the outside of the two corbels, there we go, just to show this little point there, line. So 39 minus 1 times 2, so 39 minus 1 times 2 equal to 37. And we can just label that lip. And this is overall length. I'm just going to go O-A-L. All right. So this is 37. And now the important one, because we've got to figure out the length of this, is going to be 37 minus, these are going to be 3/4 of an inch wide, okay, minus 3/4 times 2. So 1.5, so that's 36, 35.5. Oops, it's going to draw 5 first. 35 and 1/2. So the distance between here is 35 and 1/2. All right, so now we have the length of all our pieces except for the height here, I guess. So again, this is going to be 3/4. And distance from here to here, what is that? So our total is 5 1/4 minus 3/4, so that should be 4.5. If you can figure out in your head, that's fine. But whenever you do math on your paper, please label it so that we know what it is. Oh, right here I didn't follow my own just a little bit. All right, so 4.5. Got that. You can get that dimension there. Oh, the height of this overall is 7 3/4. So I'm just going to double check that. That is correct. So, if this is 7 3/4, then the height of this corbel will be 3/4 less because it's got 7 3/4 minus 3/4, 7 inches. All right, 7 inches. Let's label our pieces here so we have all that. So I usually do the vertical pieces first, so I'm going to say A, B, and C. All right, looks pretty good. Now I'm going to show you the layout on our piece of lumber. I'm not going to spend much time on it, but I need to show you that in order so that you can understand why we did it the way we did it. So if we take a piece of lumber, I would like to put this on an extra sheet of paper somewhere. So you're going to get a board, looks like this, all right? And then we're going to make a cut for this letter A, this letter B, and this letter C. All right. So for our letter A's, we're going to make an end cut, and this cut is going to be, I think I have it at about, how long is that? It's going to be about 7 1/8. We'll do some of the math after a bit here, if we need to. So about 7 1/8. And then we're going to have 2 other cuts. We got one for our letter B. So this is going to be our letter B. And this is going to be our letter C. Okay. And the overall length of the board is 48. So 48 minus 7 1/8 is, let's see what that'd be, about 40 7/8 left over. And the length of letter B here is 39, you see that? So this board is going to be cut out at 5 1/4. And this other board, we want to cut that to a finished dimension of, oh, we never put it in. So it's a good time to do it. What drawing all these pictures does, it draws out your mistakes. And that's what we're trying to do here. Draw out the mistakes, so all we have to do is cut 1 3/4. Okay? So letter C here, it's going to be 1 3/4. We're going to end up cutting that shorter. Okay? Now, for letter A, we're going to be making our corbels, or letter A's, out of those. Okay, and this is kind of how we'll lay them out. And they kind of will match together just like that. And you should have more than enough stock there. But our board, if you add up 5, 6, 7 inches, all right, so that we're using 7 inches out of the board. I can tell you that I made these boards about 7 1/4 wide. Oh, pardon me, move that. So we have 7 inches. Now, what's in a 1 by 8? 1 by 8 is 7 1/4 by 3/4. So all these dimensions fit into a 1 by 8 board cut in half. And that is the reason I use this layout. Okay? It's important to do a layout like this first, and we can determine the size of everything before we start cutting. And by using standard size lumber, if you guys wanted to run down to the lumber yard and pick up a 1 by 8 and cut it in half, you can make this shelf. So that's kind of what we're after here. So down the line, you'll install this shelf at your mom and dad's house or whatever, and you'll use it, and then you're going to want to let it go, and you say to yourself, boy, I'd sure like to have my own shelf, and then you go ahead and build yourself a shelf. See, you'll know how to do it. So that's the point. Okay? So now that we've got that all laid out and drawn on your sheet of paper, okay, you can do it on a separate sheet or on your same sheet, that's fine, I don't care, as long as you get it all on there. But I would like to see this on there. I will be checking. So get that all off of here again, because we'll run out of space otherwise. All right, so what's next? Cut list, right? So shelf, drawing, then underneath on your notebook paper you should be writing cut list. Come down about 2 lines underneath your drawing. So here we'll write cut list, cut list. Okay, and then we have label, quantity, size, material. All right, we're just going to keep doing this and doing this and doing this. So I want you guys to have this so ingrained in your head that you'll be able to do this long time from now, 20 years from now. It's real important to do all these things. All right, so label A, quantity is 2, the size is according to this, and we'll put the actual size down, knowing that we're actually going to, there's a word for that, when you put the 2 pieces on top of each other on the same piece of wood. Nesting. We're going to nest the pieces, so, but we're going to actually put this down. So size is 4.5 by 7. The material is going to be, in this case, it's going to be basswood. Okay, but it could be pine, could be oak, could be whatever. Okay, letter B. We'll have a quantity of 1. The size is going to be 5 1/4. I always like to put the small number first. By 39. Okay. And letter C. Letter C is going to be 1 3/4. Oh, quantity 1, 1 3/4 by 35 1/2. And instead of putting screws in this time, we're going to use glue and nails. We're just going to nail it together. So nails are more than adequate for a shelf. Screws are extremely powerful and they would work, but they're just not needed in this application. So anyway, let's go ahead and get this cut out. All right, so I'm going to show you, I always examine my boards. This is a really nice surface, it's all smooth and pretty. The edges appear to be just fine. And I noticed on this side here, I don't know if you can see it, but right here, it's kind of got a rough spot on it, okay? So, looking at that, what I could do is I could use this end for the shelf. So this end, this will be like the 5 1/4 part, and this will be the 1 3/4 part, and then I'll put this towards the back. It'll never even be seen. So again, we want to always examine our boards before we start cutting, so that we can find the defects and figure out a place to use the piece of wood. Just because it's got a little thing like that doesn't mean it's a bad piece of wood. We use defects all the time in this industry, so it's just fine. So we're going to use the opposite end for our corbel. So here's where the part is that's not good. So we'll cut off the other end. That way we know we'll have really good stock for our corbels. And I said to cut it off at 7 1/4. So I'm going to bring this over to 7 1/4 and make a mark. And I'll put an X on the side I want the curve. And on this side I'll just measure over to make sure we still have enough, and we have more than enough stock based on our drawing, which is what we want. I always want to leave ourselves just a little bit of room for mistakes and stuff. So anyway, I'm just bringing it over. I'm going to check to make sure I'm lined up with the blade. And I'm going to orient my hand properly and go ahead and make the cut. All right, and that is it. Now we'll go over and lay out our stuff, and we should be ready to go on our corbels and on our other pieces.
Anytime.
Okay. Well, I've already made these patterns, which I'm sure is a huge surprise to you. This is called the Ogi curve right here. Okay. So these Ogi curves, when they're laid out properly, should almost line up exactly. Which is, this is, they never come out this good. I mean, this thing is, it's got less than a fingernail across most of it, which is awesome. What we're going to do is we're going to lay it out on our little piece we just cut out here. So, one piece will go like so. Actually, we'll use, I made these for doing this actually, so let's just go ahead and use these. That way we can have people laying out their corbels while we're cutting on others. So there's one, and we flip it over. So that's not a real good mark on there. I had a bunch of dust on it, so it just bounced over all the dust. So you want to have a good solid line so you can see it. Okay, and see, then we're going to flip it over and nest these pieces together. That's probably going to be on a quiz, so I would make sure and put it on there. Because it's a great way to save stock. Nesting. Now if you were running a CNC, it's even better, because what it does, the cutter will be over here somewhere and it comes over, drops in and just cuts the profile out and cuts this profile out, and you're done. You don't even need to pare off the material, but we don't have a CNC, so we're going to have to pare off the material over there on the bandsaw. So that's that. We do have a ripping operation that I will do over on the saw, because I guess the 8th graders, this is an 8th grade project, so you'll be ripping your own pieces over there, so we'll go through that. But notice how it comes off the end here, and there's a little extra stock left there. You always want to leave a little extra stock, like I said earlier. That way it gives you a little opportunity to move things around a little bit if you need to, true things up. So anyway, let's go ahead and get this on the bandsaw and get that paired off, and then we'll be ready to go on the next operation. Okay, so now we just check to make sure that our blade guide is above and our safety shield here, so that it's about an 1/8 inch above. It was already set there, so yay, I don't have to do anything with it. I'm going to start up the machine and cut the profile. I want to leave about an 1/8 inch or so around this whole profile, and watch how I'm spinning the material around I'm turning it, but I'm pushing through and I'm moving at the same time. There'll be time when I'll back out of the cut, like on this square corner here, where it comes up and kind of goes square across there. So what I'll do is I'll come up and I'll come at a different angle to come around this, or I'll start at this side, this end, and come around and just meet the cut. And as long as you're not pulling excessively hard on the blade backwards, and you can back out straight, but it's just when you're going around the corner trying to back out, sometimes the blade will come off. And so sometimes it's best just to shut off the machine and then back it off. So anyway, let's go ahead and cut out this piece of material. Okay, I don't know if you can see the line, but see where the line is and how I've left about a 1/16 to 1/8 all the way around. That's about right. Okay, when we put our patterns on here, we're actually going to screw into the back side here where that won't be seen. But and then you don't want to leave much more than this on there, because otherwise it can do some major tearing. So we don't like tear out. All right, I'll put this off to the side and do the next one. Okay, and we just throw the scrap in the bucket, and we've done the same thing. So now we're going to go ahead and go over and screw this corbel to our pattern, and we should be ready to go over to the router. Yep, okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put these patterns, just attach one. That's then the other person will have the other pattern rigged up. I have two of them. So all you do is put a screw in that. That's assuming that router is all set up. Otherwise we have to do a router setup, which ain't a big deal. See how it's tight in the corner? There shouldn't be any shadow here along the edges, hardly at all. So anyway, let's go ahead and screw that on. You don't want to bury the head. They should be just even a little over flush, doesn't matter. I just don't want you to overdrive these screws, and you see how I'm just using a little bit of trigger. Okay? There's no need to just go hog wild on this thing, because otherwise it's going to destroy the patterns. That's plenty good. See, this head is actually sticking up a little bit. That's fine. You don't have to bury the head. Okay, so this one is ready to go. So let's go over and see what's up at the router. Otherwise you just do this on both pieces, and we shouldn't have to revisit that. So let's go over and get them on the router. Alright, so now we're gonna, I did have to reset up the router, which isn't a big deal. We can hook up the disc collection to this. It helps cool the router bit and the motor sometimes. Actually this one doesn't cool the motor as much, but anyway, we're going to go ahead and get this profile cut out using the pattern. So just watch how I use my hands. See, I got to plug this in here. It's going to get loud. So have your hearing protection on, your plugs. Wow, do you see how smooth and pretty that cut is? It's just gorgeous. So that'll make a real nice corbel. So I'm just going to do the same thing to the other one, and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, here we go again. I do have a different, this is like there's a left-handed pattern and a right-handed pattern, so we're going to see how this one works. Hopefully it works just good, but we'll start out at the tip here. With the other one, we started out at the top. So this time we're going to start out up here. So this is the opposite hand, so don't, should work the same, okay? But we are coming against the grain a little bit in one spot here, so it could tear a little bit. The other place that might tear is here, but a good sharp bit I think will be just fine. So let's go ahead and cut it. Just a little bit of roughness right here. It's like tear out. Another word for it is galling, G-A-U-L-I-N-G. That may not have been there with the other one. So, just a little bit of sanding to do. It'll still work good. But these are pretty much done, except for we're going to put a quarter round over on those edges after we pull it out of the jig here. So, all right, let's move on to the next operation. All right, now we're going to do a little bit of ripping on the table saw. Ripping, remember, is when you go with the grain, and cross-cutting is when you go across the grain. So it's all in reference to the grain. So we're going to rip first. And remember, we had that little defect we wanted to put on that 1 3/4 piece. So that's going to be my first cut, so I don't forget. And you'll have hearing protection on when you do this. So the defect is here, so I'm going to put it over on the fence. So I'm going to lay it out like this, so I know it's laid out and ready to go. Set these at 1 3/4. There's 1 3/4, and you always check it after you push the handle down. It should still be on 1 3/4. Some people will just put the gauge on 1 3/4 and close it. That's not the way to approach it. You want to make sure it's still on after you push the handle down, because sometimes it shifts off the mark. So make sure you do that. All right, hearing protection, and we'll get her cut. Okay, we gotta wait for the saw to normalize. There we go. Now it's just green. Now we're ready to go. So I'm going to pull out the paddle and cut it. Okay, I measure this piece, and it's just the tiniest bit over 5 1/4, which is just exactly where it should be if you're using 7 1/4. And this one's at 1 3/4, so we're good to go. Now we just got to cut them to length. So 5 1/4 one is at 39, so we'll go over to the cross cut for the miter box. We'll cut that at 39. Make sure I'm just going to make sure it's nice and square. According to the saw, it's real nice on that end. Since I checked that one, I'll just cut off this end. I've already looked at it for defects, and I know it's okay to cut this either end, because the rest of the board is real good. I marked it at 39. I want to put a little X on the side I want the curve. because I pulled from this way, I put the X on the, I don't know, I've just made my lines really light, but you can see the line right here, and here's my X right here. I don't know if you can see that, but that's what I did in that case. And let me double check your cut. No surprises. Very close to 39. All right, so that's that piece. Just set it on the tabletop for now, and I'll go over and grab my other piece. That would be letter C, I believe, and that piece has to be 35.5 long. So again, we'll check it for square, make sure it should be good, just in case, check it. That looks just fine. Oh. If we can cut off some of that defect, I remember I said there's a little defect on the back side, so let's pull from that end and come up this way and cut off some of that defect. I know that's the side I already squared up, so I know that's in good shape. So then I just pull down here and go to 35.5. Put an X. Yeah, we're going to cut off the vast majority of it because we're cutting off about, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches there. Get the blade lined up. Yeah, there's hardly any defect left. So that's what your goal is. You always like to cut off the defective parts, or it's not always even a defect, it's just anomaly, I don't know what to call it, but will really have no effect on anything. So anyway, those pieces are now cut to length, and now let's move on to the next operation. All right, so now what we're doing is we're going to make a little dado in here to hold the lip of the plate. There's this off-colored wood, that's where I have a glue line, so I'm actually going to try to run it on the back side there to kind of keep that towards the back, to keep it looking more uniform. It's just my taste, you know. If you want this on the side, I don't care. You can easily do that if you want. Yeah, all I'm shooting for here is to get that plate rail in. It should be 2 1/4 the inside, so, or to the outside of the dado. From this edge to the outside, it should be 2 1/4. I've made a lot of these, and it seems to be the best. Some of the plates have a really, it's almost like a curve on the bottom, so it's more like a bowl. And if you don't give it about 2 1/4, you won't have enough slant to have it lean up against the wall right. And so that's what we're kind of doing here. We want to make sure that they'll lean up against the wall and stay put. You have a 100-year-old plate, you don't want to fall off the shelf. So the slot's going to be a 1/4 inch deep and 2 1/4 over. So let's go over and just touch off. It's already been set for 1/4 inch up, and I have the dado head set up for just right close to a 1/4 inch. So I just bring that over until it just lightly touches the fence. That just lightly touches, and the reading is about 1/8 of an inch. So I want to set it at 2 1/8. And to the outside of the blade, it should read 2 1/4, which it does. So, you know, I hope I went through that very quickly, but we're just going to keep on moving ahead here. So, what I'll probably have you do is I'm going to have you X the side that you want dado. I actually like this side the best, so I'm going to put an X there about where I want it. And you want to make the X big enough so you can see it. You just have a little erasing and sanding to make sure that the lead line comes off. So this side will go towards the fence and the X will go down. Okay. So this is the side you'll most likely see, because most shelves are going to be up on the wall about this height. Okay. So you don't hit your head on them and different things. So anyway, let's go ahead and get that dado cut. So it's all set. Normally you don't, one of the things I'm just going to touch base with really quickly here is normally you can just use this for adjusting it. So you just put it where you want it. Okay, with the dado head, you can't do that. You've got to just go ahead and you get it close with the indicator, and you make sure with a tape measure. And that's what I did. I measured over the outside of the blade, and it says it's very close at 2 1/4. And close is good enough on this. So anyway, let's go ahead and make our dado. Sometimes I'll set up a table on the other side so it just falls off onto the table. But I can get this done without doing that this time. It's not that, this piece of wood, if we're using white oak, yeah, it's heavy. And so let's just go ahead and put a table on the back side to catch the stock as it's coming out. And you're going to watch, I'm not going to be behind the saw in case it would catch. But anyway, let's go ahead and make our cut. Okay, so we've cut a real nice slot along there. Just a couple more things to do, and we'll be rocking and rolling here. We'll be about ready to start assembling, but we just got to route the edges and do some sanding. So anyway, let's set up the router for the 1/4 round over.